Good afternoon. I'm Joe Kashi. I'm the district governor this year. And for what it's worth, this is my 41st year in Soldotna Rotary. I've been club president twice. We're going to talk today with some real experts on leadership who've lived it all their life. Past District Governor Harry Kieling, retired Colonel U.S. Air Force Wing Commander, and a guy who's gone Mach 2, which is 2.2, which is a lot faster than me, and Bernie Griffard, 28-year Army Colonel, Homer Club President, whom I saw do some remarkably simple but effective leadership acts down there. And then after that, taught generals how to be leaders for another 22 years as a professor at the Army War College. I'd like to thank you today. And what we're trying to do is just talk about the nature of leadership with the idea that it may help club presidents who find themselves in a somewhat unusual or different situation, and may help give them insights into how to make themselves and their clubs more effective. Well, anyway, that's my fumbling attempt at an introduction. Harry, you had a question for Bernie, as I recall, before we started.
Before we get started, I got to tell you, Joe, I don't want you to call me an expert in any. I am not an expert in any field. I'm a pretty middle of the road pilot. I've at least stayed alive, so that's good. I didn't get fired as my club president. That's something. There's something to be said for that. But if you call me an expert, there are definitions of experts, and that does not include me. So let's start there. What I was going to ask Bernie is, what's your most memorable thing about being club president, Bernie?
I think the response from the membership to how I presented whatever issues we were trying to present. What they seemed to I just out of luck, I guess I hit the right buttons, and they were more than willing to cooperate and do everything that had to be done. And it really, when you say leadership, it was a matter of I think coming out of the military, there's a separation. If you got command, they're going to do what you tell them to do because you have to. If you have leadership, they've got to be convinced that if they are asked to go do something, that you're willing to go do something with them at the same time. And it's a matter of there's an issue of cooperation. If you cannot get them to go with you voluntarily or do things voluntarily, then you probably are failing as a leader. You've got leadership is more than just go this way, go that way. It's, hey, let's do this together and we're going to be successful. And I think that's where Rotary comes in, is being able to go up and take a club, work with a club, and get them to be a team and work with you, not by trying to tell them, okay, we're going to go do this. No, you ask them, what are we going to go do? And then you can get the buy-in from everybody on board, and you're successful. It's and even I found on active duty, working with some of my peers, as Harry will probably tell you, that too many type A individuals in one room can get kind of sticky at times. But it's a matter of being able to find out what is the point that you're all going to come together on, and then move to that area. And I think
so, Bernie, I think
rewarded by that.
I think it's because you're approachable. I mean, I think I would guess that when you were club president, the members in your club really felt like they could come to you, and they really looked forward to working for you. And that's my impression of your leadership style. You're not one of these guys that barks orders at people. You involve them, and you all move forward on your own objectives. But I really think from the very beginning when I met you, you were approachable, which is a great trait.
From my perspective, very quickly, one thing that I found is I always sign my emails as Joe. And if anybody emails me as this year's DG, I respond as fast as I can, preferably within an hour or less, just so that they know I'm listening and I hear them. And in fact, I do understand what's going on. The other thing is, from my perspective, what I've tried to do is maybe I've been overly long, but I really try to explain to people what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it, and the reasoning and facts behind it, just so that the idea of building consensus. And I think an awful lot of it is really just building consensus more than anything else, and people realizing that you're going to work harder than anybody else and be the last person in the line for food, for praise, or for anything else like that.
Oh, Joe,
Go ahead.
let me just add this, Joe. I've seen a lot of DGs, but I don't think I've ever seen one that was more immersed in the job that you saw at hand. I can't believe how much you've delved into anything that would affect any of the Rotarians in our district. You've jumped on it. You've gotten answers. You've helped people along. I think you're a marvelous leader, and I think it's because you're not going to do it halfway.
Well, Harry, those are kind words, but I got to tell you, the real reason is that I was inspired by you. Quite honestly, and Bernie too. Quite frankly, I've watched you guys. I watched Bernie, for example, at his club. When I went down there, you had a Nigerian exchange student who felt very uncomfortable and awkward, and he was just having a difficult time. And when I got down there, he was cheerful, he was bubbly. The simple thing that Bernie did was Bernie said, "You're the greeter. Come to the meeting and you say hello to everybody as they come in the door and learn who they are." And the next thing we know, Bernie's club is applying for a grant. I talked to the young man, who turned out to be a really nice young man. They're applying for a grant to help him with his UAF tuition, because he absolutely was going to come back to Alaska. He felt so good about being with the people here. He's told me, what?
He came back.
I know. He told me, I said, "So how are you doing with your reverse cultural shock?" He said, "I'm already having arguments with my father, who was also a petroleum engineer." He said, "I'm already having arguments with him about it." And yes, he came back. And yes, he is going to university up here and wants to be an Alaskan. And I think it really came down to that simple thing you saw Bernie and did, which is to just help him be comfortable by making him the greeter, making him just part of everybody, so that he was part of the team rather than feeling isolated. That was simple. It was inspired, and boy, was it effective.
Well, let me tell you, I can't take all the credit, because my daughter was working with the youth activities then. And when he showed up, he would basically walk around down to Wasilla when they had the winter meeting with his earplugs in, didn't want to talk to anybody, because although he could speak English, as he told us later on, he said, "You people don't speak the same English I do." Well, and he was hesitant. And she basically told him, "Yeah, take those things out of your ears, and you have to make the move." And we helped him along. And Winston has been a fantastic individual. And I think the story that comes the best tells how it is why he had arguments with his father. A year into his visit here, we had our health fair. And he comes, we had 2 exchange students that time, and they were wearing their blazers. Well, Winston comes up, and his blazer is about 3 inches short in the sleeves, and he can't really even button it across the chest. And I said, "Winston, did that fit you when you came?" He said, "Yes." And of course, he was now about 3 inches taller, and just done blood. He had just totally physically changed. But no, he is a fantastic young man, and the whole club feels adopted to him. But I think one thing that I would, in dealing with in a club or anything, I've been proven on many occasions in my careers that I am not the smartest man in the room. And it was easy. And when you walk in and you're standing in front of a Rotary club, you fully understand you're definitely not the smartest man in the room. And there's so much talent out there that it's how you identify that talent and get that individual moving in that direction. Delegate that what has to be delegated, and let the people who really know how to do this particular type of specialty, let them dig in on it and do it. It's we have a media Dennis came in, and he came out of Nome. He ran a radio station up there. and he's a media expert. Well, we just turned that over to him, and you just let him run with it, and it's been fantastic. So you pick the talent, you see the talent there, and you just make sure that you're using the talent properly, and you're not trying to. There's no reward in Rotary for saying, "Look what I did."
You know, I would have to say, I very much agree with you, Bernie. This district has a remarkable amount of talent. And yet, too often we have kept, we have had sort of an inferiority complex. Like, let's talk to somebody else. They're 35 miles from home carrying a briefcase. They must be an expert. In a lot of ways, we need to develop our own talent and take pride in it. And I would say, for example, that the Kenya project that you're heading up, Bernie, is a good example of that. Not only do we have Bernie as the project head, who's done like 15 peace and environmental security projects in Africa, but it turns out that Bernie's deputy, a Rotarian from Sitka, was the USAID guy in Kenya for years. So, I mean, we have expertise right there. We turned out that my sparring partner at the karate dojo, who's part of it, is like a nationally recognized expert in climate adaptation, in the ecology. We have these people here in our district already, and I agree. We just need to recognize and take advantage of them. I'm going to tell a quick story. It's been one of my favorite stories about leadership. Johnny Torrio is a name not many people remember. Turns out Johnny Torrio was the head of the Chicago mob for real. Johnny Torrio was Al Capone's partner and died a natural death at a late age. Johnny's simple secret to success was, there's enough in it for everybody. We'll just spread it all around. And I think that applies certainly very much so to the idea of credit or ego boosting or whatever. Johnny Torrio let Al Capone take the publicity of the limelight. He let Sam Giancana pretend to be the head of the Chicago mob, getting the headlines and kind of prancing around like some mafiosi don. Well, Johnny Torrio died in bed on the theory that there's enough in this for everybody. No need to hog it. Al Capone went to prison and went into infamous mythology, and the supposed boss, Sam Giancana, died of lead poisoning while making spaghetti one evening in his home.
Which, by the way, he only lived 4 blocks from me.
Who, Johnny Torrio?
Sam.
Well, okay. You grew up in a rough neighborhood, I guess. Or at least
he lived well.
In a safe neighborhood.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my favorite thing. I think the trick for people who want to be leaders in a Rotary club or a Rotary district or anything else is to spread the credit far and wide. That's all people really get in a volunteer organization, is the internal sense of well-being from knowing they've done something good to help make the world a better place, and the warm feeling you get from credit and recognition by the people around you. That's all we have as Rotarians, as club leaders, as district leaders, is to help people feel good about doing the right thing and getting recognition for it. So kind of grabbing the credit. I've kind of banned the term my year or my club, my secretary. I've sort of banned that term. It's not mine. It's our club. It's our year, or 2020, 2021. And it is our consensus for the DG line. We don't really take any major decision without 100% consensus on the DG line. We don't set policy without the DG line's concurrence and consensus at this point. We are a team, and we're so much more effective for it now. And it also means I can spread the work easier, more work spread out as well. But I guess I would say, be humble and kind. You remember that, Harry? That was your motto that year. The humility, I think, and the kindness means helping people feel better about themselves. That's why they're doing this. And just really spread it around. Don't take it.
Well, I would say, Joe, that when you think about humility, we all are in a position where we need to practice that and really work hard at being humble. And being kind, I think that's just in our nature. The third part of that motto was take action.
Yep.
But let me offer a couple of ideas in fact, let me offer a couple of goals that I had when I was club president, which was 20 some years ago. But I laid these out because I thought they were three things that I thought I could accomplish. And I would offer to club presidents or PEs that, when you get to be president, you probably got a whole pocket full of ideas, great ideas. But if you have more than about 3 or 4 goals, you're never going to get to them in your year. So really think long and hard about what you'd like to do. But I'll tell you the 3 that I selected. One of them was, and I think this is really important, I think as the presiding officer, you need to make it very clear to your club what they can expect from your meetings. And I can tell you that in my club, the speaker control got completely out of control. In other words, the meeting might end at 1 o'clock, or it might end at 10 after 1, or it may end at 1:30. There was no assurance of how long that meeting was going to last. And I think that's one of the first jobs a president can do. Say, listen, we're gonna start this meeting on time. That's my job. We're going to end this meeting on time, and that's my job. And just little techniques on how to control a speaker. I mean, you can get somebody up there, you can have a senator or somebody really important, but you just explain to them, say, hey, a couple of minutes before 1, I'm going to stand up behind you. And that means that we're going to end at 1 o'clock. Because your club members have got other things to do, and they want to know that they can be out of there by 1 o'clock. The other thing, which is become a little bit passé, but when I was club president, the cell phones are just starting out, and cell phones would go off in the club, and it was very distracting. And as the club president, you need to take control of those kind of distractions. So I said, I'm going to charge anybody's cell phone that goes off $50. And they said, you are kidding me. I said, I'll bet you that works. And it did work. Once I followed through, there were no more cell phones until the very last meeting that I was presiding officer. At 12 o'clock noon, I was ringing the gavel and a cell phone went off. And I thought, I've been doing this a year and nobody's learned a thing. Then another cell phone went off, and then another cell phone went off, and the whole room erupted in cell phones. And everybody was laughing and pointing at me. And of course, they'd ask their secretary or their assistant or somebody, right at noon, call me so I can have my cell phone go off. But then you got to laugh about it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I did that to our club president one time.
Harry, that's success on your part, the fact that they took it in that attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, okay, now what is memorable about Harry's year? Let's celebrate it right here on the last meeting.
Exactly.
I remember first time I was Soldotna Club president. By the way, Harry, Soldotna only fined people $20. We're just not as well-to-do as the people in the Anchorage Downtown Club. But I told the sergeant at arms, I said, we need to have fun this year. We have to have fun. It can't be your weekly root canal. So I said, find the hell out of me. Find creative ways to find me. And unfortunately, he did. And he nicked me for around $2,000 in fines over 50 meetings during that year. And that was in $2,000. It's like $1 for every year of the 2 millennia there. But he had fun at my expense, and everybody else did as well. And I thought that was important.
Joe, that's an interesting point you make, because the downtown club has actually a not very well deserved reputation for charging people outrageous fines. What guests don't realize is whenever the sergeant at arms levies a fine, he or she has already cleared that with the person.
I didn't know that.
It's not a surprise out of the bag, which would be, they say, well, I'm going to fine you $100. And they go, wow. Well, that was predetermined and agreed upon.
That's a good idea. I mean, I was just having fun at your expense, but it brings out a good idea too.
Yeah, it's the same, I guess. The object is, you're getting the people that are out there, the members of your club, to participate in some
Uh-huh.
way or another. And, well, we would have, someone would bring you something, we would raffle something off. When Gary Thomas was still alive, that was part of the entertainment. You get up there,
Mhm.
you'd want him to raffle something off, because that was 5 minutes of just unmitigated entertainment for everybody.
You
So,
know, I just realized, I'm sorry, Bernie, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just the Italian side of me.
go ahead.
I was going to say, I realized in the process, I should be finding myself now because I just violated one of my primary maxims, which is always engage in self-deprecating humor, making gentle jokes at your own expense, not teasing somebody else. It's really easy for other directed teases or self-deprecation to gradually get out of control and cause real problems in terms of members' morale or somebody's attitude or whatever. So I'll find myself, I'll give $5 to some appropriate charity by way of violating my own maxim there.
Let me ask Harry something. When you were president, and you might recognize that there could be some friction between members, or two members, or maybe just a group, that you could see this, what action would you take? Did you take?
That's a great question, Bernie. And the way I want to answer it is twofold. One is, if you got to be very careful as a presiding officer to keep control of your meeting. And you've got to be prepared at any minute to step in. And the example that I always try and share with folks is, I had a really experienced, long in the tooth Rotarian in one of my club meetings. And we had probably 175 people in that room. And I was up there, and he said, "Oh, the girls are something about girls." And so when you get caught by surprise, when somebody says something like that, you better be prepared to say something, because if you don't say anything and you try and ignore it, you become part of the problem. And even if it's as simple as saying, "Hey, Bob, that's inappropriate. Let's move on." You got to acknowledge it. And a lot of people have trouble with that. So as far as controlling the meeting, I don't know if that was your question, but that's one of the things I
That's
think.
part of it, but also the fact is, this might be something that you see that maybe is not interfering with how your meeting's going, but obviously they could interfere with the club as a whole.
How would you deal with that, Bernie?
Well, I think you have to try to analyze. First of all, you talk to each individual, maybe not approaching them directly as "Hey, what don't you like about Joe?" Or talk to them about, try to find out what their trigger points are. And then you talk to the other individual, and you may discover where the nexus is that needs to be addressed. And in some cases, it's people, well, over the last 4 years, it could very well have been political issues and things like that, where you really have to keep that out of the mix. And that's, we tried real hard to make sure that that was not a discussion point in anywhere along the line, because that was always you have all the opinions are in that room, and you cannot let one get out of control.
Or try to dominate.
Yeah, we had a speaker. She was basically had worked for the oil business for her whole career, and she was saw that they were putting a pad in near her property and everything else. She basically was saying, "Well, maybe is this really necessary?" And she was going to write a book, things like that. And she got caught with a question that she was not prepared to answer. She had, it wasn't an ambush, but the individual hit it, and it was just one of these things where, okay, let's move on to the next question, because you can't let that sit there. And the sad part about it was, it took her 6 months before she could respond to the actually provide an answer, and she did that in the Anchorage Daily News.
Oh,
So that was Those are things you have to, you don't know what the after effect is going to be, but you have to make sure that we don't punish someone for coming and talk to us.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, good.
yeah. We used the sergeant at arms fairly liberally when somebody got a little bit out of control along those lines. And we try to make it be fun in the process, but still make the point without being too harsh.
Yeah, you're walking a thin line as a presider, because
Yeah.
you could easily lose the respect up there too if you do it improperly. And like Harry said, you've got to take action. You cannot let it get away, especially in the Homer Club, where close to 50% of our membership are female. And so this is in fact, I think we're leading in many places in that area. And it's, you have to let people know that the world has changed, and whatever they grew up with is not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, world keeps changing, and some people try to keep not changing with it, and that can cause problems. We've I remember over the years, we've lost a few members for things sort of like that. Michelle O'Brien, who was your predecessor as district governor, Harry, had a couple of good comments, I thought, along those lines, and they're the 20 tips that we prepared last year for club presidents. But Michelle's was to just basically show appreciation for everybody and recognize that every Rotarian is valuable in their own way. And Bernie, I've noticed, when you've been working, for example, on the Kenya project, how deeply respectful you've been toward everybody. And that seems to really make such a huge positive difference. And, Harry, and I know my spouse, who, as you know, is a psychologist, talks about what a kind, nice person you've been. And both of you guys come from combat arms backgrounds, and yet both of you come across as being particularly respectful, approachable, kind people. And I don't know if there's a correlation there or not, but it certainly seems to be a very valuable and worthwhile kind of thing.
Joe, let me add something to that. It's kind of an interesting. Actually, I should start out with a story. When I was leading the group study exchange troop to Brazil back in 2013, I really didn't know how I came across with people. And you say, what does that mean? We went to all the small towns in southern Brazil, and everywhere we went, there was a photographer with a Rotary shirt on and a camera. And he took pictures of everything we did. And then one day he showed me the album, and I said, who is that old man with the frown on his face? And I never realized, if I'm not careful, I end up frowning. And people look at you and they make, the impression you're giving them is that you're mad or you're angry. And so I really work hard at smiling, because if I don't smile, I really look angry. And it's just like right now, you look at the pictures of us. If you're smiling, it's a welcoming posture, so sometimes we don't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Yeah.
And basically that comes across if you're standing in front of a room with a large group of people too, very much so. And, going back to what Harry said, controlling the meeting, in some of the conferences we were running, I was the presider, basically the traffic cop. And I would be the one that would have to make sure they come up, make sure we're done by this time. And you'll get a guy up there, you brief them, you have this much time, and they just keep going, and they just keep going. I'm sitting next to the sister of King Hussein of Jordan, Princess, whatever her name was. And she hadn't talked yet. And this guy's just going on and on and on. And basically I got up and threw him off the stage.
Yeah.
Said, that's it. If you have any questions later on, that's it. And he thought that I had personally embarrassed him, but the people in charge of the whole operation and everybody else on the panel were very pleased to see this guy leave. Sometimes you just have to do that. your job is, and that's part of you, because if you let that go, people don't get to talk, people don't get to, you've lost control basically, and one person's monopolized all the time. But it was an interesting experience for him, I think. I don't think he's ever been basically
Thrown off the stage.
move him off, but you have to do that periodically. And it's,
Yeah.
Did he join ISIS, Bernie?
yeah, but you have to, there's a subtlety, you can do it like Harry said, my technique was similar to what Harry said. When we were, you're taking questions, usually by our scale, we're in the middle of, taking, like everybody wants to talk to you. Once I stood up and sort of walked over by the podium, my folks knew that was a signal that we were about to end. And so it goes across, and then the speaker looks behind him and says, "So I guess maybe my time is up." Yes, your time is up. But thank you for coming.
Both of you guys were speakers briefly at our mid-year meeting in February 2021. And if you recall, in the instructions to everybody that went out, I said, you're confined to 3 minutes. This is the beauty of Zoom. At the end of 3 minutes, we'll give you a 10 or 15-second warning. And when 3 minutes is up, whoever is running the meeting, in this case, Lieutenant Governor Rosie Roppel, is going to mute you. And so you can keep talking, but you're going to be muted. And then we just call the next person.
Well,
the example is like, I like to tell people, if you're ever on television, trust me, when your time is up, your time is up, and it's going to cut you off there. There's not extra words. It's done.
Done. That's right.
Yep.
They had Richard J. Daley, the first Mayor Daley of Chicago, designed the city council chambers so that they had absolutely no acoustics whatsoever. If you weren't talking into your microphone, you just could not be heard. And he controlled all the microphones. And so if there was a alderman, which there always was, that was not on didn't like the mayor or whatever it was, he would be carrying on. And when he was done, when Daley had felt that he had had enough say, he just flicked a switch and recognized someone else and turned their microphone on, let them talk. And this guy could just, he was just there, and there was no sound coming out of him whatsoever. So this is not a new leadership technique. This has been around for a long time.
One or two other thoughts that other district leaders have mentioned was it's really important, I think, to be energetic and upbeat. And basically, I've read studies that suggest that one of the roles of a leader, one of the primary roles, or two, were partly to provide a vision of where we want to go and help people get a coherent consensus about where we want to go, but then also just interject energy and enthusiasm into the system. You may wear yourself out trying to inject ideas, energy, and enthusiasm into a system, but that's really your role. It's not to get every little nitpicky thing done. It's to get people enthusiastic and all moving in the same direction. What do you guys toss on that?
I think leadership has got to be adjusted. You've got to adapt to whatever situation you're in. I think right now, this year and the end of last year, the leadership capabilities of our club presidents in the Zoom environment has been tested very heavily, because they've lost that personal contact, but yet they still have got to control and be the president of the club. I think Lori, at our president, has done a superb job, and because she's just the type of person she is, she's been able to manage this Zoom thing better than a lot of folks can. And I think that now what's going to happen now is we are now going to work back into, hopefully, face-to-face meetings. And individuals who now have been going over a year in the Zoom environment are now going to have to move back into the person-to-person environment. That's going to call for a major readjustment of how they interact with their membership. What do you think, Harry?
I think we're going to learn a lot from the transition. I'm not sure what all the lessons are going to be, but I think we need to be open-minded and flexible and be prepared to accept changes. Not exactly. And I think you are right. I know our club president has done a really nice job. And one of the things she does, and I don't know if she does it consciously, but she recognizes people and always says their first name. Like when we introduce guests, she will say, thanks, George, thanks, Bernie. And the old business about learning somebody's name and using it right up front is so important, because they say, wow, he or she remembered my name. That makes you feel good. And here's a question for you. If you are in a group of people and you're talking to somebody and you say, gosh, I can't remember if his name is Joe or John, should you say nothing or should you give it a shot?
You're talking to an individual who's never been able to remember a name in his life. And
Same here.
and so in many cases, if you could string out the conversation long enough, you'll learn that it'll come to you, or you'll learn the name. But in all purpose, you would just might have to just swallow your pride and say, look, I'm having a senior moment. What was your blowing your first name? And that's all you can do. You can't fake it. You pretty much going to have to reckon it, because you want to make sure that the individual knows that you care about it, at least that much. And it may seem embarrassing when you have to ask that question, but it's just something that has to happen. And of course, given the age of most people in our club, we all have those moments, so it really doesn't make much difference.
Yeah, and you'll forget them soon enough if they do happen, right?
That's right.
One of the things I think is coming out of this year is that we're learning that different ways of doing things work in different situations. Zoom is a really useful way to do a training like this. We can record, have a business meeting like with the finance committee, or even just kind of get together and work, say, between Homer and Kenya, Africa, that kind of thing. Zoom is just equivalent, is remarkably effective as a tool for those sorts of interactions. But it's different, for example, when you talk about people going to PETS, our president-elect training seminars, the human interaction there and the club meetings, the human interaction is just so much more valuable and worthwhile. Though I think what we need to do is recognize when certain technology tools make a lot of sense for something like this or a short meeting, and when we really need that human interaction for it to help people bond and work together better, or just have the serendipity happen, the equivalent of sitting around a water cooler bouncing ideas off each other. There's some studies coming out now from this last year of isolation that are suggesting, I just saw something out of the MIT neuroscience department the other day, that when people have been isolated for a long time, when they actually start getting back into a room with other people, their brains really light up in a very positive way. So I think, we have to learn how to, as you say, Bernie, use the right tool at the right time.
I think talking to our president-elect and the general feeling, PETS this year, term failure is wrong, too strong. The PETS this year was not effective. It did not achieve the goals that it has always achieved in previous years, because it became a series of lectures, and a lot of folks just are not. That's a tough thing to learn how to do on Zoom, and especially when you're talking multiple hours during the day. And they have tried to find time to fit it in. It was not effective. They did not get the enthusiasm that comes from PETS is generated by all the people in the same room doing the same thing. And if at all possible, as far as strengthening leadership in the district across the whole issue in Rotary, we cannot allow that to happen again. This is almost a lost year for those that went to PETS. They did not get the benefit out of it that all the rest of us have gotten. As they look towards next year, they have really got to make the effort to be able to do it where it's face to face, because that kind of an indoctrination and learning process does not work well over Zoom.
I heard a few comments along the same line. And at the same time, I think everybody recognized that they're in uncharted territories with the pets groups and all. They're in uncharted territory. They've never done this before, and they had no option but to try it. But I think it's a classically good example of where in-person works far, far better than the other approach there.
And,
You know what? I didn't even know when Pets was held. Was it
it's
done
still going on.
downstate? What's
I
that?
think, it's been drug out over
Weeks.
weeks.
Yeah.
That's the part of the difficulty. It is, like I said, our guy, he says, look, I just don't have time to, at home, to sit down and try to do this. And it's very difficult for him. And he feels bad about the fact that maybe he's not doing what he's supposed to do. And you have to tell him, I says, look, you take what you get out of it, and that's all you can do. It's the system and the search situation. And I said, when you don't worry about any of these people, all these things that are showing you as examples and everything else, when you become president, you're going to have all this help out here from your membership, and you're going to do well, because we won't let you fail.
Mm-hmm.
That really is key, is we won't let him fail. And so we'll build him as he goes. So, but again, it's such a strength to have that pets in-person operation that I'm very sad to see that the presidents and incoming presidents for next year did not get it.
Well,
So was that pre-pets or pets?
Pets.
And is pre-pets coming up, or has that already been done?
I don't know. That's our DGE's responsibility this year. And I haven't really been involved in that, to tell you the truth, Harry.
So Joe, why don't you wrap up what we've presented here?
Yeah, I was just thinking that myself. I wanted to just throw one other thing, though, before we do that. Two things that are related. One is that I think that service projects are the heart of any club. And when you do service projects, when you do a fair number of them and they're successful, they really give the club energy and enthusiasm. And they're a great tool for attracting new members. One of the things I did on membership when I was president most recently during the 2017-2018 year, when you were DG, Harry, was I carried around like 12 copies. I put together a list of all the things that Soldotna Rotary did to make our communities and the world a better place. And the list ran 4 single-spaced pages. And I handed them out to people like former state reps and everything else. I said, look at this. How come you're not a member of Rotary yet? And it actually brought in 13 new members that year, just basically doing that. I actually brought in 13 members, increased the club size by almost 20%. Just by that simple thing of look at all the cool things we're doing. I just list them all out. As I said, it was 4 single space pages, but some with explanation. Why aren't you a member of this yet? And I think it gave people a sense of real pride and real energy and enthusiasm. Even the people who weren't necessarily doing a lot of it felt good to be associated with it. That seemed to be very important. I think it really illustrated for me the real value in terms of making a club strong, of having a lot of service projects out there. But what I also learned was that the best projects, the best service comes from the bottom up. The president or the club leadership or the district can't impose projects and make them work. You can throw ideas out and see if they strike a spark of enthusiasm, but you can't impose projects or ideas. They got to come from the bottom up. You got to see when somebody comes with an idea that's workable, that's really workable, and that a couple of people are enthusiastic about. The best thing you can do is turn loose to 3 or 4 people who are really enthusiastic about it. Give them support, give them encouragement, give them lots of positive recognition. Which also takes it back to the other thing I don't think a president can or should try to do is control everything other than maybe ending the meeting on time and making sure the finances are in order. You can't, if you try to impose control on everything, you squelch people's enthusiasm. And in the end, what we really do is we try to encourage people and help them be enthusiastic about, look at the cool things we're achieving, ideally highly cost-effective kinds of things. And they're our ideas. and rather than squelch them and try to impose stuff from the top down. Anyway, that's my take on where it ultimately comes up. Harry and Bernie?
Let me, I see we're coming up on an hour here, Joe.
Yep.
But I would ask you, I don't know how you're going to package this program, but see if you can get some idea on how many people watched it and see if you can get some really candid feedback. Is it helpful? What did you like most? What did you not like? And then feed that out to us, because I think it's kind of a neat idea. And Bernie and I agree on that. But I would like to get some customer feedback.
Well, here's how we're going to do that. It's going to end up on the district website, but it's also, the website will just be a link to where we actually posted on our district YouTube channel. And our YouTube will give us a count of how many people watch it. And you get very candid feedback on all these social media sites.
Well, Joe, I got to tell you, I've said this before, but I really think you're doing a great job as the DG. And I don't mean that to be smoke that I'm blowing. It's you've done some remarkable things in a very difficult year, and I want to thank you.
Thank you, Harry. And by the fact that we sat down even before the year started, the DG line, we agreed on what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go. We wrote, the strategic plan does it. We have pretty much a multi-year consensus on how things are going to be done and where they're going to go. And the other thing that's going to happen this year that clubs may consider doing as well is we formed a service committee, and me as the immediate past district governor will be the chair of that service committee, which gives me a chance to clean up all my messes and help get all the projects I put in motion, give them an extra year to kind of keep them going and help get them really underway. Which you've done with Rotary Cares for Kids, Harry, as an example as well. So, I mean, it's really no different than what you've done over the last several years with Rotary Cares for Kids. But by doing the service committee that way, it also takes some of the load off the district governor and lets us basically let the PDG act as the project manager for the district, in a sense, to help shepherd these things along, not only the ones that were in process from other people in prior years or my own, but the ones that are coming along. So basically, I'm going to try to help, be part of the team. But of course, at that point, I will be a subordinate member of the team. I'll just be a committee chair trying to get stuff done.
Good.
Bernie.
I would say that talking leadership in conjunction with Rotary is an interesting concept, because Rotary basically is an organization made up of leaders and doers. And so it's you're more, I like to say, ringmaster, because you have so much talent out there. It's a matter of just getting it all pointed the same thing. It's not quite herding cats, but it is that's your challenge. And if you can get that talent pointed in the right direction. In our case, our gym every year is the health fair. And in fact, this year, because we were limited by COVID, we were not able to put together the big carnival we normally had, but yet it turned out to be a success and actually made contact with almost as many people as we had during the non-COVID times.
Interesting.
We made the hospital and everything. They said, the question is, do we run a health fair? And the hospital and Rotary and the community said, yes, we want a health fair. And we modified it. We used Zoom where it was appropriate. And we still had the blood draws. We still had the ability for these people to get together and get their get their time over Zoom with the doctor who could tell them what their results were. Be flexible
and evolve along. And I'm going to end the recording now on that positive note. Thank you for everybody. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining us and just talking about some leadership skills for this training session. So I'm going to stop the recording now.